Hi, Sean. How are you today?
Sandra, I'm absolutely fantastic, as you can see by my amazing Starbucks. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, but you know what happened, Sean?
Go for it. I have no idea.
I drank all my coffee already. Now I have no coffee to have and share with you. So I guess we're going to have to place an order and have them bring it in real quick. Barista, I need another cappuccino. Okay, Sean. It's nice to have you here at 20 and
Thank you.
gone. And I know that you just ran in right now from your appointment, and I'm really glad to see you. You don't look too frantic or anything, so that's a good thing.
Thank you. I'm conscious. Everybody who's wondering why is he so muted. I'm so conscious of over talking Sandra that I'm making a conscious effort to sit on my hands today and be very, very good. So, so I'm going to be good, Sandra. I thank you. And you look wonderful. You look absolutely fantastic, Sandra.
You always say that. Okay, you know what? I want to. Um, I have something I really want to talk with you. You and I talked about this recently, and when you first got here, you said you don't remember what we got together for today.
I'm sorry.
And that's kind of cool because then we're really going to be spontaneous, you know. And Dave Moore said to me one time, if you say you're spontaneous, does that mean you're not spontaneous? And I've been thinking about that ever since he said it now. But really, you're going to be spontaneous on this for at least a split second because I want to talk to you about, are we really afraid to stand out in a crowd, or are we willing to stand out in a crowd? You know, so much has been said recently about standing out in the crowd, being different, and making your story noticeable so people want to know it. Okay, my question is, are we afraid to really do that? Do we do it even knowing that it's what we need to do or should do? I don't know. I mean, I have my thoughts on it. I'm going to ask you, Sean, how do you feel about that statement? Are we afraid to stand out in a crowd?
Well, actually, that's a big question, isn't it? And I guess for me, the first thoughts that occur are in what context. So what I mean by that is I might be very, very willing to stand out in a crowd when I'm relaxed and I'm with friends and I'm being sociable. But I might be much more conformist when I'm at work, or I might be in an occupation or profession that doesn't really encourage being different and standing out. So those are two thoughts, and then overlaid with all of that is my personality. So I guess if I'm very expressive, I'm going to be driven perhaps more to stand out in a crowd than if I'm extraordinarily analytical and process driven. Huge generalizations, but those are my top line thoughts. What do you think, Sandra?
Gosh, you know, I've thought about it, certainly because we talk a lot about business. Business is a passion of mine, along with Google Plus and YouTube. But the fact that, yeah, if you're in business and you're branding a business yourself or whatever, we do have to stand out. Excuse me, we do have to be different. And knowing that with what we're doing in society today, by having so much of the same thing so prevalent in front of us all the time and having to stand out, are we still more concerned about fitting in with the crowd because we're concerned about what they're going to say? You know, I thought about that a lot, that when I look at social media, just as an example, because that's where a lot of things are being done today. I mean, that's all we hear about is social media. Are we afraid to say what we really think and be different for fear that they're going to come crashing after us with spears and everything, because that's not the right thing to do somehow? You have to blend in and you have to agree with everybody, or maybe you're making too much noise. And so my feeling is that, yeah, I think that we say we need to do it, but I don't think most people want to do it.
I suppose what occurs to me is when we're learning something, whether we're kids or we're learning a new skill, there's a point where we replicate what we're being taught. So if I was learning to drive for the first time, I wouldn't suddenly do things in a radically different way. But there will come a point where I take all of the learning that I've absorbed, and I put my own Sean element, or you put your own Sandra element, and that's what makes you drive in the way you do, and I drive in the way I do. So when it comes to your example about social media, I think it's useful, if we're talking about that example, to take guidance, maybe, but at a certain point, if all we're doing is putting out the same type of content as everybody else, in the same order and the same sequence, if we take social media as an example, it could be anything, couldn't it? Then, okay, we may have our tribe, but will we ever stand out? And for me, if I think of the great visionaries, whether they're Sir Richard Branson or I don't know, I mean, you'd speak about people on Shark Tank when we talk. They're different, aren't they? They may be controversial, but they're different, and we remember them. So for me, standing out is really important, because ultimately that's something that's going to differentiate us, and that's going to be really valuable. Very long answer. I'm not sure I've gotten to where I want to go, but does that make any sense to you?
It does, and you know, I think what you're saying is really good, and I wonder, and I'd ask you, Sean, do you hesitate to say something at times? I mean, you gave a brilliant example when you were talking to me. It depends on where I'm at, whether or not I want to stand out. And do we stand out? Let me just bring up an example. Dave Moore just said, if you want to stand out, you have to be outstanding. Okay, does that mean all the time then that is the true us the person that is willing to stand out in any circumstance, regardless of whether it's social media or it's in our family or it's in our friends group or anything? Do you hesitate to make that comment or make that stance? And let's forget politics and religion. That's something we're not going to get into, but our true belief of something or how we feel. Let's take Richard Branson, for instance. He's not afraid to say how he feels about things, and he, you know, it is what he really believes. We could take any number of people that we know that is a standout personality, and it's not always because of the accomplishments. It's because they're not afraid to be themselves and be different.
Yeah, I mean, as we've I've lost the power to speak. Start again.
Can you do that again for the camera?
See, I was standing out then. I wasn't afraid to show the fact I can't talk. I suppose for me, and I'm going to read Tanya's comment. Tanya mentions, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do this. Tanya says, sometimes I post an outstanding item and cringe with giddy excitement. Now, the reason I've chosen to read that out is some of it for me is around confidence. So I see people, and I'm sure we've got some coaches in the audience like Dave, outstanding coaches and personal development folks. And I guess sometimes if people aren't confident, they're not naturally going to want to stand out, because the consequences of standing out could be quite painful to them. So I guess, and then I chose Tanya's comment because it mentions the emotion. And I know if I'm feeling really good about myself in one context, so I did a long 9-mile run, believe it or not, on Sunday, then that pleasure and that confidence in that context I can take into another area. So had I had a business meeting 2 hours later, I'd have been buzzing about that. But the flip side is also true. So maybe, I don't know, I'm generalizing, but I suspect if you take Richard Branson, the reason why he's able to stand out is he keeps building references for his own success. And the more references he builds, the more positive he's likely to feel. Possibly. Don't know. What do you think?
Let me ask you, do you think that standing out gives us the risk then of being ridiculed? Is that maybe part of the reason that somebody is afraid to stand out a little bit? Because I think about sometimes, people hesitate to say something because they're afraid that, oh, somebody's going to say that's not right, or they're going to come back and criticize it. And so do we have to, in order to stand out, do we have to have that ability to not care what the other person thinks about what we're going to say?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and the consequences will vary. So I could stand out at a party on a Saturday night, having imbibed a series of noxious drinks, and maybe not feel too challenged about that. But if I was in the first 3 months of a new job and still in my probation period, and it was a very process-oriented job, and the consequences of getting that process wrong were quite significant, possibly I might curb how I'm going to stand out. Not a great example, because you would hope that people would still contribute towards shaping the process. But I guess it's a combination of somebody's personality, somebody's confidence, and then an evaluation of consequence. If I shout out, if I speak out, and I get it wrong, will I be ridiculed from other people? And am I confident enough to bear that and square my shoulders and get on with it? Or am I going to shrink and crumble? And maybe that's that hesitation point that can be reached in whatever context.
Wow. Okay. So now you just brought up the point that it's not so much what other people think, it's you're going from your own internal emotion
Possibly.
of what might happen to you. You're not really considering that. You're thinking about your own self-confidence now and saying, I don't think I have the confidence to do that. It's not what they might come back at me. It's I don't know that I have the confidence to do it. You know, another thing, Dave Moore said something just now, and I want to bring this up because I think this is really good. It's your standpoint that is unique. In other words, take out the U in unique and put in the word Y-O-U. Because I think that's really brilliant. You know, before we did the show, I was thinking about these things after you and I talked earlier about what we would talk about, and which you already had forgotten, was that, remember when you were a kid and you gave these silly little things, and it said, how do you sneak up on a rabbit? How do you sneak up on a rabbit? You, now I forgot what the whole story was with the rabbit. How do you unique up on him? You know, how do you get a rabbit? You unique up on him. You're unique. That's it. You have to be unique. And I always thought I just had to put salt on his tail to get that silly little rabbit, but really I had to sneak up on him. And maybe that's part of it. We have to sneak up on ourselves and be okay with being unique. Maybe that is the thing. I don't know. And I got that story really mixed up, didn't I?
I'm still fixated on the rabbit, but I think I'm understanding it.
Well, I guess how do you find a unique rabbit? You unique up on him. I don't know. Somebody has to put that story out there for us to know.
Yeah, please help. I mean, Dave will probably shed some light on this, because I know some people are more internally referenced, so they'll be more susceptible to others' opinions. And although they'll have an opinion, for that sort of person, perhaps running the risk of controversy is a pain that they don't want to bear. And other people, it's more about the results and the outcomes. I'm not saying the internally referenced person isn't bothered about results and outcomes, but the person who's more externally referenced, it's less about whether they're going to be pilloried or ridiculed. It's about what are the outcomes that are going to come out of it. So I guess there's so many dimensions, aren't there? It's where are you on the learning cycle? Because if you're at the very, very beginning of a learning cycle, you're going to copy what other people do rather than necessarily bring your own element to it. It's only later that you bring your own element. Then where are you as a personality? Then the context, because, you know, if I'm a brain surgeon and somebody's lying on my operating table, I'm not necessarily going to experiment on a unique way to extract part of their brain tissue through the back of their head, even though it might be the most creative thing to do. You know, maybe, and again, it's a silly example, I'm just being a bit crass, but just something to think about. So the context is quite important to me.
Okay,
and I've kind of
let me ask you this. After our conversation today, do you feel that you are a standout type of personality or not? I mean, how would you describe that to people that, yeah, you can stand out and you're very comfortable with it?
For me, there's a certain amount of context. If I'm full disclosure, you know, there's a certain amount of context for me. So in some of the roles that I've done where I've gotten really, really strong results, through a team, I used to run quite big teams, then I know that when I'm in a similar situation again, I've gotten results through a combination of things, part of which is innovation. So I wouldn't be afraid to share some innovative ideas. I don't know if I can answer that, because for me as a person, there's some areas that I'm particularly creative in, but I'm not necessarily as creative as Tanya, for example, who always makes both of us laugh with her wit and creativity. I'm not sure I could replicate that. You know, so I don't know is the honest answer.
I think that's honest. So the next time we have a show, are you going to be thinking about it ahead of time?
No, I'm going to be very conservative and sit there and do my usual, you know, sober, somber, long-faced Sean. Not. No, I think I'm fairly creative and open and emotionally genuine, which wasn't your question, but I feel I need to say that because I think I've kind of boxed myself into a circle. But I'm honest enough to say that for me, there's certain areas where I would be more constrained by process, which is totally going off point, isn't it?
No, I think it's a very honest one, Sean. I mean, when you and I get together, we tend to be really truthful and honest with each other, and that's what is always a good thing. You know, I forgot to set my alarm clock for today to show that we're almost at the end. And Tanya said this topic deserves more than 20. And you know what? I don't know if people could take more than 20 of us going down the rabbit hole, as William Rock said.
Well, William's talking about the. Good to see you, William, as well. And William's talking about the rabbit hole, isn't he? And it is running very deep.
I feel like this is a rabbit hole. My conclusion for me for today, for this moment, is I think that as a whole, that the idea that we need to stand out has almost caused a counterproductive response, that more people are afraid to stand out because of the consequences of the whole now, because everything has to be so right, that we're afraid to do that. And that could be another topic of discussion, how right is right or whatever, but I think that is an area. That's my conclusion.
Yeah, do you know what? This is totally unprompted. I don't know why it came into my mind, but I was just thinking, if I asked you a question, what is the most, and I've got to be careful because these words mean different things in England as opposed to the US. So when I say pants, what do you understand? Okay, let me rephrase that. What is the most common form of unisex, so male or female will wear them, trouser, pant, call it what you want, and you guys invented them? It's got to be jeans. It's got to be jeans, hasn't it? And
did you see my look of what?
Horror. Where's he going with this? Where is the boy going? If only I was a boy rather than a crusty old whatever. But I'm kind of thinking there's an interesting thing. Why did it pop into my mind? I was thinking about conformity. You know, 90% of people walking through any town or city in the globe on a Saturday may well be wearing jeans. So you know, there's sometimes society forces a form of conformity. The thing is, my jeans might be very different. You know, they might have a different brand or a different label. So that's how I adjust things. And God knows where I was going with this. I thought I was going down a profound thing, but I think William's right. I'm going down a jeans-oriented rabbit hole, and I have no idea where I'm heading with this. But
well, I would say, what about the person that wears the jeans with the holes in it, and everybody says, "Wait a minute, that's not acceptable," and so. But the person has no problem with wearing those jeans because they don't mind standing out in a crowd. But all the rest of the 500,000 say, wait a minute, I'm going to wear the ones that are crisp pressed and fit right and look like they're not 100 years old. That's a perfect example, in my opinion.
Whereas my jeans are 100 years old and have holes in them. So no, I mean, actually, that's being silly, and I know we've got very little time left. But yeah.
We don't have any time, Sean. Okay, you have 3 seconds to say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye to everybody.
See you next time. 20 and on.